I'm Tony Ruiz, contributing editor at Gold Derby, here with Chris Perfetti, who plays Jacob on Abbott Elementary. And Chris, this season really was, I think, such a great breakout for Jacob and for you. Were you have you been surprised at kind of like the response to Jacob, particularly in this second season?
Yeah, I mean, I will zoom out for a moment and say that I feel like every experience of every day has been somewhat surprising since I got this job. I feel like it's a sort of a new pinch me moment each day, but mostly in a good way. And yeah, I think we're sort of seeing now that like the if you want to call it a gamble or um, the sort of overall risk that Quinta and our brilliant writers and producers took on season two, which is to sort of dig deeper into these characters and go home with them and maybe inject a bit more pathos into the show. And it's always going to be a comedy at the end of the day, but I think we're kind of seeing that paid off a bit in the sense that like hopefully you care about these characters a little bit more and they're not you know um two dimensional or sort of the typical like sitcom tropes. So yeah, it's very surprising. It's very surprising to like uh, meet people who I've never met before who have a very strong opinion about the character that I play on TV, or just want to note that it means something to them. It's very jarring, but it's very cool.
Well, and I think one of the things that was leaned into with this particular season is Jacob kind of really realizing his quote unquote corny factor. I think the Story Samurai episode was so great to getting to that, and it was such a showcase episode, I think, for you. What was your reaction when you first read that script?
I mean, I've reacted. I'm always like pleased to have something to look forward to, like to have a lot to do. Just as an actor, I feel like I read the episode and I was like, this is juicy. Um, but I think even more than that, I was just pleased that we were sort of tackling this idea so early in the season. I think it would be very easy for Jacob to remain in this sort of like unaware and again, I don't think he's going to change overnight. Jacob is still going to Jacob, but there was a bit of like catharsis in that episode and that's what I loved about it. I feel like bringing him sort of in on the joke just opens up a whole new world dramatically. He knows that he is Hillary Swank and Freedom Writers and what the C and Mr. C stands for now. And and yeah, it just sort of like peels back some layers of the onion, I feel like. And and I think we could have waited until the end of season two to do that. But the fact that we didn't, um, I feel like really gave permission for these deeper explorations of the relationships to happen. You see all of them kind of like banding together in a new way. All of the friendships are kind of like strengthening um and it's just real. I mean, I feel like first and foremost, that's the thing that excites me about it is like that's that is the most exemplary of human life, I feel like, rather than sort of making him a cartoon character or woefully oblivious, which you know he is a little bit, but yeah, I also just had a real appreciation for the circumstances in which they decided to tell that story. I feel like at every turn, our writers and Quinta have sort of chose unconventional storylines. We're not doing like a typical I don't know, like what I think you might brainstorm in a show about a school. And this is a real thing. This assembly and the Story Samurai are a real thing. They go by a different name, but I remember them very well. And so yeah, it was just kind of like joy on many different levels when I first read it.
Well, you talked about the relationships, and to me, there's been a lot of focus, obviously, on the Janine and Gregory, love story. But to me, one of the most fascinating dynamics was kind of like this growing love story between Jacob and Gregory, of that friendship, of Gregory actually letting down his walls and leaning on Jacob. How much conversation do you and Tyler have about just that relationship?
Look, I mean, doing a scene with Tyler is always just a very profound and humbling and grounding experience. And so, you know, uh, we shoot our show very quickly, and there isn't really time to. And I don't think the show actually wants, for too much of it to be planned. And um, I'm just very grateful that I got to do those scenes with Tyler because I think um, yeah, he has that effect on me, and he's an incredible actor, and so it's very easy to play off of him. But um, yeah, I sort of like to stay out of people's way and just see what happens on the day. And again, there's not really time to sort of like uh, it's still sort of being shaped like on the day, and so it's kind of the beautiful sort of overall lesson of this project. I feel like is just surrendering control in a way, and just kind of making peace with what's happening in the moment. So
It's
but all
interesting.
of that is to say, like with another actor, I don't know that I would feel that at ease about it, or that I would not want to control every aspect of it. I feel like I'm in always in great hands with Tyler, and um so yeah, it's really fun aspect of this relationship to explore now.
Well, and I was it's interesting because I was talking to Michael Pepin, the cinematographer, just about an hour ago, and and one of the things he told me, which I thought was so interesting, is how the camera crew in many ways is a character in this show, particularly with kind of the talking head moments and the kind of the asides and the stares directly to camera. And I'm curious as to, from an acting standpoint, how strange has that been in terms of, really the camera being a part of the scenes?
I feel like it was um I wouldn't say it's strange. It's not strange anymore, at least. And I feel like, I come from the theater. I trained to be a theater actor, and I've had the great fortune of working on a lot of amazing plays here in New York. And I feel like that aspect of our show, the sort of like the performative aspect, or the sort of always having one uh, foot in this aspect of uh, the show being caught by somebody else, by an outsider, I feel like is only helped by my experience in theater. There's an element of like uh, needing to multitask and do many things at once, which I think is fun to play. And yeah, it's exactly that. It's a real sort of ballet that's happening between the fourth wall, which I will call the cameras, and us. And they are a character in the show, and it's amazing now how since we've had a good amount of time to work together, how just intuitive everything is now. It's a real gift to be able to create things like that with a collaborator who knows where you're going to move before you even do it. And it's just a major part of the storytelling. I think the part of what I enjoy so much about watching our show is seeing what they've done. They are like, and they are sort of forcing you to see the show through a certain person's eyes, and the camera blinks and turns its head and catches things that maybe uh, I didn't think they were going to catch when we were shooting it. And so um, it's a lot of fun, and it feels very theatrical. It feels like almost athletic and like something that's happening um, in in space, as opposed to flat sort of um, predictable coverage of a single camera show.
Yeah, when I interviewed Lisa Ann Walter, we talked about the asides, the looks to camera, and I'm curious, do you how much at this point, how much planning goes into when you're going to do that? Is it in the script, or is it kind of unconscious at this point?
Yeah, it's very rarely in the script. I think I can only remember one or two moments in all of the episodes that we've done where it was, um and I may even be wrong about that, but it's very much, yeah, it's really hard to explain, but it's this beautiful symbiosis with our camera operators and with our directors. It's just sort of a feeling, and they are constantly sort of capturing what they're capturing, and then have an eye on the rest of the room, and it's very organic. And I think it wants to be that. I think the danger of or the trap of this medium is sort of like overselling it, and at the end of the day, a mockumentary should dupe you into believing on some level that this is real life, that this is a documentary and that this is actually happening somewhere in the world. And I feel like, um if you it's a fine line between sort of tipping your hat, I suppose.
Well, and you being from the theater, you know the importance of an ensemble, and this really is, I think, in the best sense, a complete ensemble. And I'm wondering, do you ever like in those scenes where, particularly when you're all together in the teachers' lounge, scenes which make teachers like me so happy because we've seen all of those interactions before, and we're like, oh yeah, we know that. Do you ever kind of catch yourself going, wow, what a group?
Yeah, I say that at least once a day. I am surrounded by veritable, comedy icons and just really good actors and generous people. And so it's not lost on me. But yeah, I would say particularly it's those moments. It's the longer, more ambitious oneers where we are biting off a lot, and the show is sort of happening at the speed of fun, as I like to say. And we really get to play off of each other. Um, and and that's when the show, I feel like, is I don't want to say at its best, but um, I feel like it just really soars in those larger group scenes. So yeah, anytime we're in the teachers' lounge, anytime we're in the library, God forbid if we're in the library. Usually, if we're in the library, it means something terrible has happened. But yeah, those larger group scenes are just it for me. It's so fun. It's like being in an orchestra and sort of like needing to tune yourself to 10 other instruments. It's fun.
I'm just laughing at the fact that, similarly, every time we're summoned to the library, I feel like something bad's about to happen. Um, um, did you model Jacob off of how much of him was in the script, and how much have you kind of added to him over the years? And do you base him off of any like? Do you use teachers that you've had experience with in your own kind of life?
I don't think so. I mean, I think somebody asked me this when we started season one, and I feel like it was not necessarily teachers that I've had, I think, but aspects of people in my life. I feel like I've borrowed or sort of explored or got curious about. But yeah, I feel like playing at being a teacher is not really, like, you can probably attest to this. It's teachers are human beings, and so there's not really much, I feel like, that you could classify as teacher behavior. And and I just don't particularly find it like helpful to to executing what we have to do. And so way more interesting to me, I feel like, are just what Jacob's hopes and dreams and desires and fears are. And so Quinta, I feel like, painted a very clear picture of that in the first few episodes of the first season. And so um yeah, I'm still just sort of like riffing on that. But it's it's actually a bizarre thing getting to work on a character this long, which which you typically don't get to do, obviously, because I'm still learning about him. We will write, something will show up at a table read, and I'll read it, and I'll be like, oh, Jacob has a brother, or oh, Jacob went here, to get his degree or whatever, and so obviously I feel like the foundational, fundamental, bits of his personality and are specific enough and clear to me that I have somewhere to start. But it's kind of this like ever evolving thing. I'm learning about him just as you are. So um, that was a long winded way of saying, no, Jacob is unlike anybody I have ever met.
You know, I I read somewhere, I read an interview that you had done where you had said, actors necessarily aren't used to this kind of like job security and always waiting for the next job and something like that. So I'm curious, have you relaxed a little bit with this?
I don't know. I guess I would have to ask the important people in my life, but I feel like the answer is no. I think if anything, I'm even more stressed out and worried about my work and anxious and than ever before. But there is sort of like a sneaky subconscious part that I can feel but don't interact with much, that is just kind of at peace, or that is sort of in flow state, that feels kind of like uh one mountain has been climbed and we're just kind of like resting a little bit. But again, that's a very, very subconscious part. Yeah, I mean, the beautiful thing about like getting to act as much as I have this year, I told you I'm in between shows here at the theater, is like uh is that I get to act a lot every day, and it's I think most actors kind of get. I'm not going to generalize, but I'll say that I uh, had a tendency to get down about acting when I wasn't doing it. I think actors get here I go generalizing again. Some actors get upset with acting because they're not doing it, and so this has been a real kind of gift and a surprise to like spend the majority of the year getting to do what I love to do.
Well, congratulations on both the play and the second season of Abbott. Everybody go to
Thanks, Tony.
goldderby.com, make your predictions for the Emmys, and stay tuned with interviews with more contenders throughout the season. Chris Perfetti, a great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Back at you. Thanks, Tony.